Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm Dave Palumbo, and tonight's guest is a very special one. He is a multi-NPC Team Universe champion. He's an IFBB pro bodybuilder. He's a motivational speaker. He's a self-help guy. He does it all in this industry. He's very well known. He's been around for a long time. It's my honor to get him back on the show. Skip Cour, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dave. Hey, it's great being here. I really appreciate that. The invitation. Actually, I went out and got you, right?
You did. Now, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, first of all, because I put out a rant yesterday about why bodybuilders are broke. In other words, why don't they have money? Why don't top professional bodybuilders make a great living? Jay Cutler seems to make a great living. He always has. So some bodybuilders are just not business-oriented, and the question is it the onus of the organization, of the media outlets, of the supplement companies to support these guys? I say no. I say it's not. I say the onus is on the bodybuilders themselves. And some guys are able to make a great living, and some guys are not even great bodybuilders and they're able to make a great living. But yet other people that are great bodybuilders and they're broke and they can't pay their bills. And Skip, you contacted me because this is something that's dear to your heart. You kind of help people empower themselves to make money. Explain what you do since you've been retired.
Well, my biggest passion, actually, even before I started training, was I was always fascinated why we as people do the things we do. I've worked with some of the best peak performance coaches in the world. And actually, this journey started 6 years before I actually started training at the age of 27. And I really credit that for me going for my dreams, quitting the traditional safe and secure job to go on as a bodybuilder and to write for the magazines, create DVDs, all the things that I did with it, go for my passion and my dream. I know that there are a lot of people who, love working out and they would love to do that. They either play it safe and conservatively or they go into it without a template, a plan. And then very few make it like Jay Cutler and some of the other ones too. And so, I would say my journey, although I may have done better than most, with that hustle to make a living out of it. I quit my job 19 years ago now to chase my dreams. I realized that although I may have done better than most, I was challenged in a lot of areas, like really living up to my full potential. And what I've realized is that it's not just the top professional bodybuilders. You definitely see that. I mean, Dave, since day one, it's been that way. It's interesting because every once in a while, I don't know, who you're exposed to, but if you talk to teachers, let's say, or the military, right? They kind of have the same things, that they should be paid more for what they do. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of respect for teachers, and I certainly have that respect for the military. The challenge is they kind of know going in what they pay. So to change the deal when you knew it going in, that's what the challenge is. Obviously, it's all about perceived value. And so a bodybuilder can be great at what they do. They knew it going in that there wasn't a lot of money in it. So it's, I would think you can look at those other professions and say, well, that's the deal. You got to work your way around it. A lot of bodybuilders, they don't work their way around it because, quite frankly, I believe it's a mindset, but it's also strategies, and it's also where they put their willpower, focus, time, and energy. But one thing on top of, we focused on the bodybuilders, and I know you talked about Louis Marco's his video that stimulated your video, but I'll tell you, as I've gone through my journey, and I consider myself a coach, a life coach. I don't tell people how to live their life. One thing about it, as you go through the challenges of life, is that we all could use objectivity and perspective. And when you have a coach who is skilled and can guide you through the process, it gives you objectivity and perspective to make better decisions. Because many times we make decisions based on a whole bunch of stuff, whatever, our past. It really doesn't matter why. And
for a second, what's the major mistake that most people make? What is the main mistake that these bodybuilders are doing? I think it's just laziness. You're saying that there's more to that. What are they doing wrong that they're not able to earn a living for themselves, even though they may be the top 10 bodybuilders in the world?
right? But I think what I want to really point out is it's from the top to the bottom. It's not even the pro bodybuilders. It's the same thing. Challenge could be said with all of us who live, or most of us who live that dedicated fitness lifestyle. I really believe the number one reason is we don't understand or appreciate the amount of willpower, focus, energy, and time that it takes to develop an amazing physique. To us, we just love it. It's just what we normally do. And we don't have an endless supply of willpower, focus, energy, and certainly not time. And so what makes a person generally a master in those areas, which, they're quick to tell you, look how great I look. And, I'm one out of a thousand. But the business skills, what value does that create for other people? It's not understanding what it takes to have that body. And here's an example. If someone said, hey, here's a perfect example in our fitness industry, because again, Dave, I think this is from the top all the way down to the bottom, those who choose to live this dedicated fitness lifestyle. What do we say to people? What do we say to people? Regular civilians, as our code word is, right? If they can't find the time to work out, we say it's just an hour. You can do it. You can find it. And you hear a lot of fitness people saying, what's your excuse, right? You hear that all the time, right, Dave?
Sure.
Well, if you said to that bodybuilder, hey, why don't you have money in the bank? Why aren't you making a living? What's your excuse, right? What do you think a typical bodybuilder would say to that?
To having no money in the bank, bodybuilding is an expensive sport. I don't have any time to work. I have to go to the gym all day.
Right. Well, they tell a person who can't get to the gym, they say, what's your excuse? But if a rich person, a wealthy person said, hey, what's your excuse, right? Your typical dedicated fitness person would be highly offended. You don't know my story. You don't know it's not that easy, right? Yet we have no problem saying that to a person who can't get to the gym.
Right. Well, that's why I say bodybuilders are lazy. That's my whole thing. I think that they just don't want to do the extra work. They want to sit back and grow. They want to sit on the couch and watch TV and or play on the internet, and watch Dave Palumbo and Louis Marco videos and get upset about what we're saying about them. And they don't want to go do the work that it takes to actually start a business. And when I can only speak for myself, but when I was competing, I was lucky enough to have a supplement company sponsor. I was sponsored by Metrics, but I also did guest postings. I did people's diets. I did seminars. If people hired me to do it, I would do appearances at stores. I sometimes bounced on the weekend. I trained a couple people at the gym. I mean, I was always keeping my streams of income open, but I just knew that intuitively that I needed to do this, because if one stream ended, I needed other streams to be there to pick up the slack. But other people don't think like that. How do you get them? How do you get them to change the way they think?
Well, like I said, I definitely respect and appreciate. We had a lot of the same circles. I think we were with Metrics at the same time. I know that we dealt with AST at the same time,
yes,
right?
You did.
I was doing that hustle with you. I'll tell you this though, when you put all that willpower, focus, time, and energy into competing, you don't have this endless supply. And so what's left? And when it comes to training, finding a way. Hey, how do you gain that ounce of muscle? They will find a way. They're tenacious, right?
Yeah.
How to find money? There's nothing left in their tank. Number one, they really undervalue what they put in. They just think it should come, and they're not as tenacious. When it comes to their body, they're totally tenacious, but not when it comes to making money. But I'll tell you, it's deeper than that. Like I said, just being lazy. The bottom line is, you can do anything you want to do if you are committed. So I guess if they don't do it, I guess it could be under that umbrella of being lazy. But I'll tell you this, from my experience helping people who, I don't know if you can necessarily say they're lazy. Like I said, I think this is from the top of the dedicated fitness world, a professional bodybuilder. But I'll tell you what, I work with 47-year-old personal trainers that, maybe they're personal training for 60 hours a week, but they're pretty much in the same boat. You know what I'm talking about there, Dave? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
it's kind of like this whole mentality. And I'll tell you this, is that there's a lot of things that drive us in. From my experience working with so many people all over the world, and also coming from that over 30 years in personal development, always being just obsessed to understand why we as people do the things that we do. How can I take my life to the next level too? And then working with so many people, some of the challenges that make us so dedicated to adhere to this very stringent lifestyle, right? That makes us great, to become the 1 out of 1,000 who, feel we deserve more for our physical bodies. Those same qualities that make us outstanding and we're able to disconnect from people and to be dedicated and to sacrifice all that, those same qualities that make us great are the same things that push away business. So it's in addition to business strategies, and I could talk about, it's just not understanding how business works, but also a lot of our issues. And let's talk about some business strategies, for example, right? I don't think that a lot of bodybuilders, they understand how their physical body, that it's not that unique, it's not that different, and it isn't providing so much of an emotional value that they believe in the business world, right? It's their focus. They're great at their focus. But the bottom line, it's a template type of thing. You do this, this, and this, you have this body, right? Business doesn't work that way. Business is the person who thinks outside of the box and takes risk. Training and eating, I don't care how good you get, that's a template. Being in the military is a template. Going and getting education. And I deal with all these people, right? It's something that you become unique for doing, to have that body, to have that discipline, to get all the education, to go through the military. But those are all jobs that the people who do so well do not get paid very well. And that's the difference between business and doing something that is a template, all right? The business owner who thinks outside the box, he takes all the mental, emotional, financial risk. In business, the people who take the biggest risk get the biggest rewards. I don't think bodybuilders understand they're not taking a risk. And I'll tell you this, Dave, like I said, we were in similar circles with sponsors and everything like that. You were a sponsored bodybuilder. I was a sponsored bodybuilder. And we, were able to, convince the supplement companies that we would provide value. At the same time, now that you have your supplement company, it's a whole different world being a business person taking risk. Am I right?
Absolutely. Look, I'm moving my company down to Florida at the end of the month. It's a huge risk. It's a lot of money we're spending. I got to move the facility that we were building out on my property where we were going to have the studio and everything like that. I can't get internet there. I'm going crazy. No one wants to provide internet, or at least high-speed internet. I'm begging companies. I mean, I took there's a lot of risk, and we're moving in 20 days, and I got a business, a house to move down there. I have all my snakes that I breed I got to take down there. The 3 cars I got to ship down there with, Johnny, who's coming down as well. And animals, we have 2 dogs, and they have 2 cats. I have a cat. It's almost mind-boggling what we're putting on the line, but I believe in my heart and my passions that when I get there, it's going to be a better opportunity, and we're going to make more money and be able to create better content in a studio that we're going to customize for ourselves. So, yeah, you got to take risks. Ask any billionaire or any guy who's worth a lot of money if they took risks, and most of them have taken risks and failed a couple of times before succeeding. I remember Ed Connors told me, the guy who used to own the Gold's Gym franchises, that he was bankrupt at one point, and he got himself back and took some risk, and he wound up buying the Gold's Gym franchise. So, yeah, you got to take risks. Is it that bodybuilders are afraid to take risks with everything except their life, and except their bodies?
Well, I think it's a certain mentality that makes a bodybuilder. They look at, generally, this isn't everybody. They make the world black and white generally, right? Like it's right or wrong, okay? And that's what makes them function. They get themselves to believe that if they just did this, they're not thinking about all these different variables. That's what makes they're able to stick to the extreme discipline and structure, right? That does not work in the business world, right? You talked about the risk that you're going to right now. I mean, you multiply that, Dave, since day one. Yeah. I think that bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders, or whoever is doing the complaining, that thinking that supplement companies should pay them, they greatly underestimate, or they're naive to the risk that a business owner takes They underestimate all that risk that it takes to be successful in business, and they overestimate how much they're adding value and risking. And that gap is what creates all the confusion.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
You're right,
All
100%. So what do we do?
Well, first of all, there's a couple things. One is education, right? And I'm going to take it outside of the pro bodybuilding world because, like I said, Dave, I know there's a lot of people who are watching this show that they exclude themselves. We all think we're like sometimes special, yet, again, this is 27 years in the fitness industry. It's kind of like a human condition. We all want to be unique and different, and we focus on our differences. And it's the 2%, the 5% that makes us different. But I'll tell you, if you look at all of us who congregate to this lifestyle, we have a lot of similarities. And I don't care if you're a professional or you're a guy who is at the regional level. I don't care. Here's another thing: is being a natural bodybuilder. I always told natural bodybuilders, you are no different, and except for you don't take drugs. The mentality is exactly the same, right? But again, they focus on the difference. We are all in this for reasons. Some things you probably notice on the message boards, on social media. You have people in fitness, they talk about how terrible the people in fitness are, their integrity, the way they carry themselves, whatever. And it's like, well, why are you here with all of us, right? It's they're different and just a couple of their close friends. I'm not saying we're all exactly the same, but I think on what I understand, this mental level, this emotional level, we all have very similar stories that bring us to the same place. And if we kind of understood that, number one, what are the reasons? What is the typical story, Dave, when someone says, why they found fitness? What brought them to fitness normally?
Usually they were either fat as kids, or they were underweight and got picked on as kids, or they had some kind of disease, diabetes, something or some kind of childhood disease that made them feel inadequate in some way. That's usually what attracts people to bodybuilding.
Oh, yeah. It's some emotional, physical, feeling less than. It could be abandonment, breakup of family, moving around. I tell you, I deal with these personalities like all the time, right? And and again, I don't like to, really talk so much about a person's childhood because it really doesn't matter. It's what you do from this day forward. Right. But I'll tell you, you got to kind of understand yourself and understand those things do create who you are. And if you had a very shaky upbringing emotionally, right, this lifestyle is going to be perfect for you. The black and white structure, because you don't want to do any thinking. What you need is certainty more than anything. There's nothing more certain than knowing what you're going to work out every single day, what you're going to eat, and that lifestyle. But I'll tell you what, there isn't a lot of room for a lot of emotional growth or business growth by sticking to some template and some certainty. It may make you feel emotionally settled, right? I know, listen, look, I don't claim to be different. I've had challenges growing up. I'm here just like what I observe a lot of us. When we come from those backgrounds, there's a certain level of trust that we don't have, and you'll hear that all the time. People don't trust, and they like the me versus me mentality of the whole fitness thing. Right? I'll tell you, it works very well to have an amazing body. It does not work well when you want to have an overall amazing quality of life, especially because it involves people. Right. Now, I have to tell you this, is that I really didn't understand this impact until after I retired from competitive bodybuilding. Because here's the challenge when it comes to the whole fitness lifestyle. Again, this is from the top professional bodybuilder. I think a lot of times we have the same challenge, is just that you get better at your physical body. But it's really no different than that regional competitor who gets into it in the first place. But I'll tell you, once you start getting rewarded for something that, like your fitness, it doesn't matter how it's destroying your life, your relationships. It doesn't matter if you're not making any money. You know what? If you've had so much chatter going on in your head, like a lot of people will post all those traumatic experiences. I don't know how much weight they put on them, but everything described, you've been hearing it the 30 years you've been in fitness. Everybody has a very similar story, not to the same degree, right? Well, I'll tell you, once you start getting rewarded, then you're going to be hooked. And then it doesn't matter. You're not going to come out. You're not going to be motivated to change things. And this, again, this isn't for everybody. And I'll tell you, I've done a lot of thinking about this, and it's not true of the reason why Jay Cutler, where I see he's different, is because he was the golden child right from the beginning. It was a very good choice for him right from the beginning. I talked to Sean Ray, Chris Cromier, Flex, where those guys, I'm not saying that, they're perfect. We all have our challenges, but that's a different setup, right? Than the person who has a regular job and then they go for the structure, the safety, the relief, the mental and emotional relief from fitness. And I'll tell you, your hunger to improve your relationships, your hunger to make more money, because again, what you said, is it being lazy, or do you not have it? You can lift all these weights, you can so discipline to your diet for months and months and months, get to whatever 5% body fat for a contest. Why can't you make money, right? There is no real reason except for your willpower, focus, time, and energy has been sapped up to have that body. And if you got into this for emotional relief, you are relieved, right? And here's the challenge is that, look, bodybuilding has saved a lot of people. And you've heard all these stories, am I right?
Sure.
Dave?
Yeah.
So I would never say, hey, look, give up bodybuilding, because people will not. I don't care if they're not making money, Dave. I don't care if they have the most horrible disconnected relationships. It doesn't matter. If they don't have an option, they're going to stay here forever. They're going to stay in a place that makes them feel good because it's better than the alternative, right? So these are the forces that you're working with. They can say they want money. They can say they want love and connection and have everything in life. But I'll tell you, they don't know how to do it. And there's a lot of things that they don't understand, about money. Here's a typical thing. I'm going to take it away from the pro bodybuilder type of metaphor, because like I said, from the top to the bottom, we're all very similar, right? And Dave, I don't know how much you've been exposed to this, but it's the personal trainer. Maybe he has a studio and he's not making it, right? I mean, he's wondering how he's going to feed himself when he's 50 or 60. Yet there's no more hours left, in the week. And, they have a very limited belief about how much they can earn, right? So they're worried they're able to put it off because they're amazing at what they do. People reward them because they're so knowledgeable. They help very successful, happy people with families and make a lot of money. They help them get fit. And so they'll say, I've had angry students, I need an investor. I want someone if I just had an investor, then I could make all this money. And then I say to them, and they're almost angry. Every time someone wants to give me money, they just want me to be, they just want to sit back and do nothing and me earn all the money. And I say, wait a second, how much money do you think you need for a studio? And, let's throw out a number, $100,000. I said, you know what? You understand that you being able to change people's lives or whatever, a lot of people can do that. That's just an idea. Business, like you said, or business is all about failure more than it is about success. You got to be tenacious as hell. You got to be tenacious as hell, just like you are with your body. You don't give up. I don't have a peak on my bicep. You'll search the internet forever, try a million different training routines. But when you can't earn money, right, all of a sudden you fold up like a house of cards, right? We don't use that same mentality, and for all those reasons, right, that I talked about. So I say to him, I go, so let me, and I'll use it. I go, how much you working 60 hours a week, you were on a roll, right? How long would it take to save $100,000? Right? I asked a particular studio owner who I work with, and he tripled his income because of the strategies, the mindset that I teach through this one-on-one coaching. And I'll tell you, it's more than business strategies. This is stuff that we carry our whole life that makes us great and may make us challenged, right? And so what he said, because he's doing extremely well, I've been working with him for over a year, and he said that it would take me 2 years, all right, to save $100,000 cash, all right? I said, Well, that's pretty good from where you've come from. So you got to work 60 hours a week, 2 years to pay all your bills, to do everything, then save and be on a roll too. And he goes, yeah, that would be right. I said, that investor, it's not a dream. It's not a hope. It's not maybe it'll work out. That $100,000 is an idea that was actually actualized. I mean, it actually came to fruition. That's $100,000 in cash. I said, if you really want to know business, you should get 10% ownership at most, and they should not do anything because they gave you 2 years or more of being on a roll. They don't understand that concept. They overvalue the value they bring to the world, right? They don't understand that business concept, and they greatly undervalue the risk of business of what it really takes to earn cash. That gap is what's causing a lot of the frustration. So it's the over appreciating. Look, you see this all the time nowadays. And
let me interrupt. Let me interrupt you for a second, Skip.
Sure,
Get a word
sure.
in here, because I tell people all the time that I believe that every person has things that make them get excited inside. We call them the word. I hate the word passion because it's so overused. It's almost like it's not even worth using. But let's say passions for an instance. Everyone's got passions inside, and you can't just have one passion. You can't just be in love with bodybuilding, nothing else. You always have some other interests. And I always tell people that if you nurture what you like and do what you like and be great at it, you can make money. But you got to figure what you love to do. If there's a bodybuilder out there who loves to be a bodybuilder, there's got to be some aspect about bodybuilding that they really love, whether it be nutrition, supplementation, drugs, whatever the hell they love to do. If you go out there and do it, you will attract money to yourself. I think what happens is people get into this, like you said, this comfort zone of saying, hey, I just want to train and go home and smoke weed in front of the computer, okay, and in front of the TV, and just have my meals and then go to sleep and wake up and do it again the next day, because that's easy. That's a safe, very safe lifestyle, like you said. But the bottom line is, if you got to go home and smoke weed because you're bored, because you got nothing to do all day, that time could be used in a constructive manner. Okay, Ronnie Coleman was a full-time police officer and Mr. Olympia. So there is enough time in a day to have a full-time job and be a bodybuilder. Is it productive? No, and I'm sure most people don't want to have a full-time job, at least doing something that maybe they're not so, crazy about. I know guys that are doctors or nurses and they're bodybuilders, and they find a balance between it because that's what they love to do. I do only the things that I like to do. Now, granted, there's a lot of sometimes paperwork, or so to speak, or other rigmarole that goes along with that, but I only are involved with the things I love to do. Now, I work probably, 15 hours a day doing what I love, but it doesn't seem like work for me. So I think what a lot of bodybuilders are afraid to do is they're afraid to find their passions and embrace it. And I think that's what I try to teach people. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily, business sense or step 1, step 2, step 3, but it's a start. And I think people have trouble getting started. Once they get started, a lot of times it's self-propagating the rest of the procedure.
One important element that I think is the rocket fuel to what you said is that you can't just do what you love. It has to fill a niche. It has to provide tremendous value for other people. It has to be unique. It has to be different. Getting back to all these mental and emotional type of things, if you're just a good person and you're a hard worker, a lot of bodybuilders put a lot of value on that. But I'll tell me how that strikes emotion and feels a pain. Because really, influence, persuasion, it's all about feel. I don't care what the person out there says, right? They may say, oh, I want the house on the hill. I want this body, I want these muscles or whatever they say. But I'm telling you, we are, they say it's 200% more motivated to get out of pain than we are to have whatever our goal is. I'm telling you, when it comes to fitness, that it's not so much the muscles, it's what we believe it will get us. Confidence, certainty, whatever it is, right? If you, you just doing your thing, look, it could create a niche accidentally. There are people who are unconsciously competent at what they do. But the bottom line, don't just do what you love. It's got to create a value. It's got to get people out of pain. That's what creates the high dollar value. There's something in it. And I'll tell you, I think Louis Marco, which started your rant, is that, again, he could be smarter than way more than we see, because I think he's a really smart guy, right? And also, in addition to be smart, he could be unconsciously competent, because I don't think he realizes how he emotionally moves people, right? I think that he shows up, he's authentic, he's not afraid to speak his mind, he's not afraid to step on toes. I think that inspires the hell out of people. We all wish we were more like Louis Marco. So he's unconsciously providing such a tremendous, unique value to so many people. He may not realize it, right? You training and eating, there's a lot of people who do that. You see, Dave, how many times have you heard this since the emergence of YouTube and all the fitness stars? Why is their booth wrapped around, the line is wrapped around the booth, but these established champions, why don't they draw that interest? Well, instead of complaining about it, what can you learn from the Dana Lynn Baileys, from the Hodge twins, from Nick Wright I can go on and on. They feel a need, whether they realize it or not. People are inspired. People want to be like that. And when they're connecting with that person, they escape whatever pain they're going through. So I think, in addition to doing what you love to do, how can you provide that need to other people, right?
I think you have to exude that the passion that you feel for what you do, you need to relay it to everyone else. People like to listen to me speak, whether they like me or not, because I touch something inside of them that they can relate to. And I think all the pro bodybuilders out there, especially the elite ones, and we'll use Ruli Winkler as an example, because that's Louis Marco said that he can't pay his bills and he's got no sponsors. Ruli Winkler is one of the biggest freaks out there. Any guy who's trying to be a top-level bodybuilder will look at Ruli Winkler and say, that's awesome. If Ruli talked to the fans and told people what he did on a basis, whether he took 6 shits a day, or if he ate 14 meals, or if he squatted 800, people will listen to that. And you know what? He's not getting online and making use of the thing that he has inside him that people want. And I always try to make myself available to everyone. Even to this day, I answer everyone's texts and emails, and I don't charge people, to answer questions. And I think people can relate to that, because I'm giving them information. I'm providing them with something that I have that they want. And every professional bodybuilder has something that every guy who works out wants, and they're just not exploiting it right. And I think, and that I call laziness, because they can do it so easily. In today's world, everyone's a TV star. Everyone has a webcam, an iPhone, or something that they can stream live to Facebook with. There's no excuses out there. And I just think that people have to believe in themselves and believe that they have value. And when they do that and put out that passion to the rest of the world, you're right, they will touch people emotionally, and people will pay for that, whether it be through YouTube subscribers that earn people money by monetization, or people hiring you to guest pose or do seminars or help them with their diet, or even take them in the gym and train with them. There's a business that every bodybuilder can make out there. There's so few of us and so many fans and people who watch that I believe that there's plenty of money to go around if people put enough effort into it.
No, I totally agree with you, Dave. I just go back that, there's certain things that draw us into this that are the same things that challenge us in this area, right? I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know Ruli Winkler, but part of the attraction to disconnect from people, Dave, that you can do all that. They complain, oh, people don't understand me, dump that person. You see all the memes, right? You see all of the Facebook posts. It's always, people don't understand me, and we disconnect. It's so normal in this culture. Do you agree with that? I'm not saying everybody, right? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That ability to disconnect, right? I'll just tell you this. My world has greatly expanded from the Focus 6-time national champion drug-free bodybuilder who wrote about it, thought about it, right? Because I realized that it only made me so happy. It left major holes in my life. And for the last 13 years, I was not going out that way. That's why I understand this at this level, because it became my passion, right? You talk about passion. You know, who talks about this stuff, Dave? Nobody. You can tell I've thought about it. You know what? I don't know, but I know that people are drawn to your energy, whether they agree with you or not, or my energy, right? I'll just tell you this, being polarizing is a good thing. I think we all intellectually know that, but not when it's manufactured. It's just what you believe. Because, Dave, I'll tell you what, you know, to my tribe, I said that I'd be, you know, on your show. And they said, well, do you know about Dave? And I said, what does that have to do with anything? Again, it's that black and white mentality. It's like, look, you're very open about everything, right? Like, what does that have to do with the topic, right? They like to shut things out. They like to disconnect, right? So now you're asking a person who knows they're not comfortable around people. Maybe they don't understand the extent. You're telling them to be open, to share their point of view, to be criticized. They don't feel comfortable. Just give me the weights. Let me just stay. Right. They get one little source of criticism. They fold like a house of cards.
Believe me, I know. I criticize him. I got people mad at me all the time. Dexter Jackson won't talk to us now because we're too critical of him. Meanwhile, he's one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. We're running out of time, Skip. I got to ask you a question. You know, you said your people warned you about me. I got to ask you because my audience is going to want to know this, and I'm just going to put you on the spot. Were you a natural bodybuilder your entire bodybuilding career?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I was. Now, again, you know.
How do you feel when people accuse you of using anabolic steroids?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, the way I see it is that, you know, Dave, my first reality check was when I was in 1997 at Backstage in the USA. Because I only saw you in the magazine. I went, oh, damn. You're right. Because they don't know the difference, right? Yeah. But you know what? Look, I just have to do my thing. If you are going to be known, you got to just speak your truth, be your truth, and you got to take I had raving fans and people wanted to kill me, right? But that's all part of it. Same thing with you, right? Yeah. So, you know, let me just tell you what I believe I have to offer the world. And, you know, look, I could talk for like 3 days about this subject and help people with their overall quality of life. If somebody right now is hung up on if 13 years ago I was really drug-free, man, I said, did you listen to this podcast? Right? It's like what you just said. I got to be me. I got to speak my truth. But at the same time, look, if I wasn't polarizing, and again, I didn't manufacture anything, right? Yeah. That's why anybody even cares or even knows my name. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all part of it. And I bring it back to the topic is that if you can't put yourself out there, I agree with you, Rolly Winker. I don't know whatever his story, but whatever his story is, he will get millions of people emotionally engaged in him. Absolutely. But he's got to have the courage to put himself out there. And I'll tell you what, I think the reason why I became known all over in the really bodybuilding rich 90s along with you, I guess I qualified to be an IFBB pro, but I never got on an IFBB pro stage, by default of Team Universe. Never thought I could compete at that level, right? I was a big fish in the small pond. I really believe, and this kind of goes to the topic, is that there are a lot of natural bodybuilders. But I'll tell you, you want to claim that you're a natural bodybuilder, you're going to get chopped and sliced and diced, okay? Right? I don't care how good you are, right?
Skip, do you think that Michael Hearn is a natural bodybuilder?
Yeah. Again, I come from a different perspective. Why? You see him in the gym. He works hard. He's really lifting those weights, right? He's not that massive. Again, this is my perspective. I don't know Michael Hearn. If someone says, you don't know, you're not around 24, trust me, I've been going through this line of questioning for 27 years. I get it. You know what? But you want to know my opinion? I say, yeah. Why? Because he's awesome? Yeah. Is that why? He ain't that awesome like compared to the other one. Again, that's the way that I see it, right?
Could you beat, who would win, Michael Hearn or Skip LaCour at their primes?
Well, Michael Hearn looks pretty damn good now, right? I'm way past my prime, and he's younger than I am, and I did compete with him, way back when at a show. We didn't, our paths didn't cross that much, but we never hit our primes. I'll tell you what, he looks amazing now. I don't know if I could. You really don't know the answer to that question until you stand
Right.
side by side, right? You know how it is,
Right.
Dave, right? But he's pretty awesome, no doubt about it. He's got all that muscle maturity that came with age.
Yeah.
You know, while I was having a family and thinking about business and all this stuff,
Yeah.
man, he stayed on course, right? So
He's got his
props.
Huskies instead. Yeah. His
Yeah,
Siberian Huskies.
yeah.
Well, Skip, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's an interesting topic. Like you said, we could talk about this probably for days. But if people want to get in touch with you and maybe take, I guess, benefit from some of your wisdom and some of your techniques, how do they go about doing that?
Well, you know, you can email me at skip@skiplacour.com, skip@skiplacour.com. You know, if what I said, and again, I think I didn't even, I scratching the surface. You can go to coachingwithskip.com. Coachingwithskip.com. I explain my coaching and what I can do. If there's something resonated with you and said, wow, he's talking about me. And every time I'm on a podcast, I get people like that. Just go to coachingwithskip.com. I'll explain what coaching is and what it is not. And you can just email me there.
Okay.
Right. If you want to know what I'm doing and just kind of learn more about the culture, you can go to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Skip LaCour page. I do live broadcasts. You talk about all that hustle, right? I've got so many things going on that, again, you know, I love them all. They all don't resonate. I've got a man formation, confidence, and leadership. Training strategies, supplement company, right? Because it's all about hustle. It's putting yourself out there, try and fail and see what hits. But probably if you want to get to know what I do day to day and get more of this, my Facebook public page at facebook.com, Skip LaCour page, and you can private message me there. You know, I even got a phone number if somebody wants to call. I make myself so available. I guess that would be kind of a tip, Dave. And that's a 213-973-8790, 213-973-8790. If anything I said moved you, if you can get and need some of this, I'll be more than happy to help. And Dave, you know, if you guys, I want you guys, this is about going for it. This is about hustle. If you want more of what, you know, I'm saying, because as you can tell, I am crazy passionate about this. I think that to have a better overall quality of life, I've noticed this from people just starting out to people who have retired 15 years ago, or oldies but goodies. Social media has exposed what Dave talked about at all different levels. And I am passionate about changing the mindset. So people like us, again, you know, we're not as different as we might think, can enjoy a better overall quality of life, right? I've cracked the code. I know that I can help you. If you want to see this regularly, tell Dave that you want me back, right? I could do a blog or whatever. Like Dave talked about, all those hours, I do that too because I'm passionate about this too.
A percentage of people tell me, don't bring him back. Get rid of this freaking guy. You know how people are. We got the haters and we got the lovers on our site. I got people who praise me to death, and I got people who want to hang me in center square. But thank you, Skip, for coming by, enlightening our audiences a little bit, giving us a little bit of positive energy to get through the rest of our day here. And people should go check him out on his Facebook page. And Skip's a great guy. I've known him for many, many years, and he's got a tremendous passion for what he does.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks everybody for being interested in what I have to say. Appreciate it.
All right, and that's going to take us to the end of another episode of Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm Dave Palumbo. We'll see you next time.